So Russ, you were a candidate for Congress in the Dallas area. I mean, how can you trust anything about an election if it's this vulnerable?
Well, you can't. In fact, if it's this vulnerable, I could have won it if I just wanted to, and I'd known the right guys.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
I think what you're telling me is you can go in and change the source code, Jykll?
We can change the source code. We can change everyone's votes to where, let's say there's a real-time election taking place. I can change the votes and make it look like it was never even changed, and that's what you actually voted.
Yeah, that's...
Unless you have a paper ballot as a backup, there's no way to validate or compare, is there?
Exactly, and that's the important need for having those paper backups, because what you're seeing is 10X, who is tied into Clarity, who's tied into ES&S, and a lot of these other voting companies. They all store their information in a centralized location on the AWS cloud. The problem is they aren't setting those AWS clouds up correctly. So they're utilizing what's known as an S3 bucket. So them using an S3 bucket, we can get directly into that as well, and then be able to, if I want to find information out about specific voters and specific locations, find out how they've voted since 2000, I can go directly into that system. So now you can start seeing your analytics. So a foreign intel service can use that.
The secret ballot is just so integral to what we do as a nation. The idea that anybody can look, I mean, you could literally blackmail people. You could do all kinds of things to individuals, and then you could literally take over our country. This is the Manchurian candidate through open source hacking, basically.
Right. Well,
let me go back a minute. You said you could go and look and see how they had voted. The fact is, what you've just really said is you could go in and see how they were purportedly voting, but that may not have been at all how they voted, correct?
Correct. What you're doing is you're building a historical trend that may not be factual. So, say for example, when people are talking about the blue wave that was coming out in 2018, what they were really trying to do was to coax the public into believing that the Democrats were going to have this huge surge. But in the background, when they're accessing all of these companies and they're going in and changing everyone's vote and accessing their information, they're being able to get the public to accept the fact that all of this was going to be changed across the board.
You know, this is very interesting. I had a long talk the other day with some people out of Virginia, and they were participating in the Republican caucuses last year, and they showed up at the caucus and they were told, well, you can't be seated, the credentials people have a printout of your voting, and you've voted in a whole bunch of Democratic primaries. And they looked and they went, no, we've never voted in Democratic primaries. And they said, well, your printout says you have. And they had to go and file affidavits. And there were evidently a couple of hundred of them at this one particular caucus area. They had to file a couple of hundred affidavits that said, we have never voted in these primaries. We don't know why it shows it there. I guess somebody just screwed up.